My name is Ruckus, and I'm 10-8. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. Got the grandbabies coming tonight, so I'll be happy later on. Okay. The reason that I'm doing a quick one today is because there was two recent court proceedings in both of the cases that I'm interested in right now. Anyways, I know a lot of people are, as the Delphi and the Idaho cases. To me, they're the most interesting cases right now. But I'm sure there's more, and we'll entertain more because it seems like it's going to be a while between any action in them after this. Now, no surprise, in the Richard Allen hearing today, they had the ex parte to get approval for the funds for legal experts. Hi, Teresa. Oh, you're at work. Hope you don't get in trouble. But they'll grant that. I don't think the judge made any decisions today, but there was mention that there was thousands of pages of evidence that need to be turned over to the defense by the prosecution. So they have a lot more evidence. We just don't know what. And because of the gag order, of course, it's not going to happen. Now, the bond hearing is a little bit different. They're saying the gag order may not pertain to the bond hearing. I think that's because it's a procedure. Okay, it's not part of the trial. It's just a court procedure. So we may find out more about that bond hearing. But it's no surprise that they denied the defense's request to move it to a different county. And the reason they denied that is because it's inconvenient for the witnesses, for the prosecution, which I agree with. But now by doing that, they're going to have to select the jury from another county, bring them in, and sequester them. I mean, I doubt very highly they're going to drive or fly them back and forth to their home counties. So they may just put them up in a hotel and have to sequester them. So this whole thing is going to it's going to be very expensive, very costly trial. And we'll just start with the Delphi, the things that I have, the comments that I have on Delphi. And none of I believe in due process. I do. But I come to what I perceive as rational, reasonable, and logical. Not even conclusions, just opinion up until this point. My opinion can be changed. It has many times. But I follow the evidence, so it would have to be changed by a proven fact or a piece of evidence or something like that. But just to touch on Delphi, okay? No matter what, they're saying that he went to a conservation officer and told him he was there, and they misfiled the information. The FBI said that they didn't do it, and Carroll County said that they didn't do it. So we may never find out. It may be a ploy, okay, to hide something bigger. And I'll get to that in 1 second without getting too deep into it. So however it happened with that paper, the defense is not defense. You know, football, they call it defense. In court, it's defense. So I'm a big football fan, so I screw that up all the time. But the defense is not arguing the fact that Richard Allen put himself at the scene of the crime. Okay, so somehow, some way, somebody screwed up. If indeed that was the case, because they brought him in for questioning, okay, and just prior to arresting him, and he again told him, allegedly again said that yes, he was there and he saw 3 juveniles and he was wearing similar clothes, but he didn't see the victims. So I question the fact whether or not he did even come forward back in 2017. And we'll get to that in a quick second. And this is just a theory, but it's logical. It makes logical sense from a law enforcement point of why law enforcement would misdirect. It's a good word. Misdirect people, not lie to them. What's up, kid? Hey, I've been checking out your Off the Grid podcast. I like it, man. I'm getting hooked. I dig it. Dig it. I didn't know that you did one. I had no idea, to be honest with you. But Charlie mentioned me on his podcast today, but he called me Rockin' Ruckus, which has a nice ring to it, too, instead of Ruckus Rocks. Rockin' Ruckus. I didn't even think of that, to be honest with you. But he's an artist and a musician, so he thinks I should have consulted with him before I named my podcast, to be honest with you. But anyways, so he put himself there, right, at the scene of the crime whenever he did it, okay, and said that he saw the 3 juveniles. He didn't say anything about seeing that woman. Said that he went out on the bridge and looked at the fish. And this is all stuff that was verified in October of last year, not back in 2017. They said that this is when he came in for their interview and they talked to him. So he admitted in at least 2022 that he was there. What happened in 2017, I don't know. That whole shit is shady to me. That conservation officer not following up with it, Rick Allen not following up with it. You can say that, well, he did what he's supposed to do. He talked to the conservation officer. Well, I would be more interested in the case if I knew that I was there at the time of this event. Do you follow me? I mean, I wouldn't just sit back. I wouldn't interject into the investigation, but I would be a little bit more inquisitive towards it. Hey, I'm the guy, I was there, and yada, yada, yada. But if they knew back then, Murder 101, first day of class, talk to and clear everybody that was there or said they were there or somebody saw them there. You talk to those folks first because the people there are more likely involved because they're there. So moving forward from that, if we put that aside, okay, and we make the assumption that all that is true and they finally got on to him, okay, now we can get into just to follow the evidence, okay, he put himself there. Check. Okay, no matter how you look at it, you just check the box. Was he in the location, the where, the who, what, where, how, and why? You got the where. He put himself there. He was there. Okay, what he saw, what he said he saw, all that doesn't matter. I'm not surprised that he said he was there in 2022 because he's seen himself on video for 5 years. He knows that there was probably witnesses, and he knows who he saw that day. So, and this all with the presumption that he is guilty, okay? We get due process, but I'm just saying how I got led down this path. Okay, he put himself there. He knew there was witnesses. In October of 2022, he said he was there, admitted to what he was wearing, said who he saw and all that. But it all makes sense. It's all logical for him to say that stuff. Even if he did not report it in 2017. It's logical. Because to him, if that is him in that video, which I am 99.9998 sure it is, he is Bridge Guy, and LE says he's Bridge Guy, but to him, that definitely looks like him. To us, it does. It could be somebody else. It's kind of blurry, but to him, he's like, fuck, that's me. That's there's no doubt about it. That's me. So So now we get to what evidence do we have? What linked them to him? Okay, so in my opinion, and everybody knows this, it was the whole Keegan Klein fiasco, the search in the river. He's snitching like crazy. That Dropbox, all of that stuff, the searching of the Wabash River. There's just too many, and there's no such thing as a coincidence in law enforcement when it comes to shit like this. There's too many things that had to line up for that to happen. So, however they got onto him, and we'll find out when we get the warrant for the search of his house, right, and what they were looking for. It's just going to be like Ron Logan's warrant. The warrant won't just say, "Oh, willy nilly, we think it's him, we're going in." No, there's not a judge in the world that's going to sign that. They have to give PC, probable cause, even for a warrant, not just for an arrest, for a warrant. Okay, you can't just invade people's privacy. We have a Fourth Amendment. What are you looking for? Fourth Amendment. Unlegal search and seizures. Can't do that. It's not good practice anyways, because whatever you find will get thrown out in court if you don't cross your T's and dot your I's. So that's day one of police work, just like day one of Murder 101 is clear everybody at the scene. Okay, so he puts himself at the scene, right? They get a search warrant. And during that search warrant, they retrieve a weapon. Okay, they retrieve some other stuff, but we're not sure what. A, we don't know what they were looking for until we see this warrant. And B, we don't know what they took out of there. But we know that they have admitted to retrieving a 6 Sauer, a weapon that matches, not ballistically, because it wasn't a spent round, but I guess it would be ballistics. That's, firearms forensics. So an unspent round that they found at the crime scene next to one of the victims. So none of us knew that. None of us knew who Richard Allen was until he got arrested. After 5.5 years, all these experts and web sleuths and all that, nobody had him on his radar. No one, including me. Nobody knew who the hell he was. So they've got this round that nobody knew about, right? So they tested it against his firearm, his Sig Sauer. And they said that there's identifying marks due to the ejection process that match I wouldn't even know how to, the manufacturing defects, I guess you would call them, in his gun, which causes all rounds to be different during the ejection process. So I've got my gun here just to show you guys real quick. But first of all, I don't know if you guys shoot or not. I have no idea. A lot of people have pistols and shotguns for self-defense for their home, but they usually sit in the nightstand, but this is a magazine, okay? This is from my Glock 43. It's a small home defense, easily concealable, and I'll show it to you in a second. But this is what's called a magazine, okay? It's not a clip. If you come on my channel, don't call it a clip. It's a magazine. So, and as you can see, the rounds are on the top. Now, since this is a home defense weapon, I have home defense rounds in it. These it's a company called Hornady. As you can see, there's focus or not, but there's plastic. Trust me, that's plastic in there. And there's cut grooves in it. So this will expand like a mushroom to do more damage. I know that sounds horrible, but it's home defense. Okay, and it's not a very big round, and you can see that the one they found was a there goes that one. The one they found was a 40. This is a 9, and I'm sorry about the shaking. My shoulders are jacked up. But here's my point, okay, and we'll touch on this in 1 second. That up before I have 2 Boston Terriers that. They'll grab that and run with it. Where was I? Just lost my train of thought just picking that up like an idiot. So I'm getting old, man. But again, I'm sorry about shaking. My shoulders hurt. So just getting back to, oh, that's what I was at. Just seeing my background picture. My DNA is all over this now, isn't it? It's all over it. If I took this round and I threw it out in the grass outside, but for a week, this will still have my DNA on it. Okay? Your fingerprint has DNA on it, but it's usually when it's that small of a sample and the way that they take it, the way that you leave it and the way they take it, because it's skin cells and they're dead skin cells. So they're going to get fragmented DNA at best. But it's just like any other puzzle. They can put it together almost completely. And that may be why they only got a partial on Brian Kohlberger, but it matched his dad's. So they may have only had fragmented. They got his whole DNA profile now, though, I'm here to tell you. So my DNA's on this, okay? So that's a fact. But here's another fact, okay? This magazine could be sitting in my nightstand because I don't shoot much and the typical homeowner does not. But, people buy extra ones, okay? Even people that don't shoot and all that all the time. They buy extra ones, load them up, and put them in their nightstand, and DNA does deteriorate over time. So as this sits in my nightstand, I swap mine out every once in a while. I will empty the magazines to let the springs stretch out so that they don't get worn. I try and transfer the rounds at least once a year. I'll go shoot these and put new ones in. But it could be sitting in your nightstand. If you guys have weapons, just think about the ammunition, especially if you buy home defense ammunition. You're not going to just go shoot this at the range or in the woods. It's too expensive, right? So, and with everything that's going on in the world, it was hard to get a couple years ago. It was crazy. I wish that I owned a gun shop a couple years ago. It was nuts. Couldn't get anything. But my point is that it sits in your nightstand forever. The DNA deteriorates. I don't know exactly at what rate, but DNA would be gone, not usable at best, after a couple years, maybe even less. Okay, but the fingerprints are still there. And here's what I wanted to show you. I'm just going to take this out. Okay, so you can see that this round is under pressure. Okay, because there's a spring in here, and I'm sure you guys already know that, and I'm telling you something you don't know, but just in case. But this is a two-hand process. They have this little thing that you can use to load it, but it doesn't work very well at all. It's not very proficient. It's much easier, and it's much easier to do it down below my waist, especially with my shoulders. But I've got my elbows resting hands, so it won't be too bad. I can work my way through it. But I have to put pressure on this round, then place this one halfway, okay? Press down, and then press it back. So that was like doing it really slow. To do it fast, it's like that. So now, if I take two out, so I push this one down, I put that one in. So I just touched the shit out of this one. Now I'm touching it again with the other hand, with a whole nother print, and then pushing this one in. Now, if you'll notice, I got a round sitting out already. If you'll notice, there is a lip where the projectile goes into the casing. Okay, so as I push this in, my finger rakes across that. So I'm loading up that area with DNA, loading it up. That area's got all kinds of DNA, sweat, skin cells, sweat, you name it. So depending on when that round was loaded into that magazine or into that weapon, if he kept one in the chamber, because I keep one in the chamber. If you guys have handguns or anything like that, please teach your kids gun safety. You be safe, but keep one in the chamber. Because trust me, you think people, you always hear that, oh, someone comes in my house, I got a shotgun. And as soon as they hear that, they'll leave. Wrong. Now they know where you are in the house is what just happened to you, especially if they're armed. You want to be quiet. You know your house. They don't know. You don't want to have to rack your weapon. go shoot him. Go find that fucker and shoot him. Okay, so if I take the magazine, this is my my Glock 43. Okay, so I've got one in the chamber. So I take the magazine out and check my shoulder up, trying to take the one out. So now I know this is empty. It's empty. So I want to show you guys, just for those that don't know, okay, it comes into two parts. This part's real heavy. This part weighs nothing. We called it lethal Tupperware in law enforcement. And there's no safeties on this gun, just on this trigger, that little trigger safety. But I could throw this up in the air with one in the chamber, and it'll hit the ground. It'll never go off. But there's no active safety. But this piece right here, that little beak-looking thing, that's permanent. It comes out. You know, I can take a pin out and pull this whole piece out, but it doesn't move, is what my point is. It stays right in that configuration like that. So when the gun shoots, the gases push the slide back and push the now empty casing against this and tosses it out of this ejection port. Okay, so that's the marks that they're referring to. Okay, and just to show you further, if I take this spring out, getting a free Guns 101, you can see the barrel falls right out. Okay, so, and there's not much to it. And this is also part of the process. If he had this thing in the chamber and he racked it out, if that's the process, this is what I was talking about when it gets fed up through the top of the magazine. But as you see, it doesn't sit flush, but it hits this area here, which is called the loading ramp, and goes into the barrel, into the breech. Okay, and then slides back and goes up against the firing pin, which is, see if I can get some light right there. You can see that little dot where my finger is. That's the firing pin. So that'll come out and strike the primer and send the round forward. Okay, but around that firing pin, if I can get the light on this right, and I'm telling you this for a reason. I'm not just trying to be a smart ass or a know-it-all. Let's see if I can get some light on this thing. There we go. You can see around the firing pin now. You can see how it's worn, okay, from me shooting it. Well, that's called the breech. When it goes up this loading ramp into the breech. This part and what it's up against is the breech. So when the firing pin hits that little primer, causes an explosion. Okay, there's gunpowder inside here, which causes the bullet to start spinning down the barrel and go that way very fast. Because guns are just a tool. If I could throw this little piece of lead as fast and accurate as I could shoot it, I wouldn't need a gun, would I? I'd just throw it at you and kill you. But it causes damage to the back of this casing. So not only will it have a punch mark from the firing pin, it'll have what's called a BM, a breech mark around it, which would be indicative of whatever abrasions or imperfections are on this this material that's around the firing pin. Okay, so we'll put that aside. My point is that round that they found had DNA on it as well and has fingerprints on it. So I don't know if they are just saying, well, yeah, it matches his slide and stuff like that. They may be misdirecting. Because, and I'll tell you why. Because, let me put this back together while I'm talking. Because there's more to it. There's more involved with it. And right away, I am no gun expert at all. I've been around them. you know, because of my occupation. But I'm not a gun expert. I'm not an armorer. I wasn't a training instructor teaching people to shoot or any of that kind of stuff. But you know, if you're going to be using these as a tool, and it's one of your tools that you're given, you should learn whatever you can about it. But immediately when I found out that they had this round, that they found this round, and they were doing ballistic testing on it, immediately I was like, round? What do you mean round? But they must have meant casing, an empty casing, right? And then I was thinking immediately, oh, so they did have a gun. Oh, the girls may have been shot, you know? All this time I thought they were stabbed. Well, now it appears, and again, we don't know. That round could have fell out of his pocket, for all we know, or whoever's pocket, or could have been on the ground already. Logic tells us that that's not the case, though, and I like to go by logic and reason and do shit the right way. So, see, I just put this back on. That noise you just heard was a round going into the chamber. Now I can put the... Oh. No, you know what? That wasn't a round going into the chamber. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. I hadn't put the mag in yet. So I put the magazine. Now that's a round going into the chamber. Take the magazine back out because guess what? I want to fill it back up. I want that one extra round. Even though I don't use accuracy by volume, in other words, just keep shooting till I hit, I like to shoot accurately, and that's how you win gun battle, by shooting accurate and fast, but accurate's more important. Don't care how fast you shoot. If you don't hit it, doesn't matter, does it? So that round should have relinquished more information. It should have. They should have got DNA from it, fingerprints, not just tooling marks from the gun. And that last video I did with the gun, but it was somebody else's. I was trying to explain to everybody. You can see the reflection at the top of the magazine is metal. So as the rounds, they're facing this way, and as they come out, they scrape that as well. So whatever magazine, they must have found the magazine as well, or maybe it was in, very well, may well still been the magazine in the gun. If he did do it, and that's the case, that he did use a gun, he racked that round out by mistake. That may well be the same magazine that was in there from that day. Because like I said, people put them away and they don't, they forget about them. Okay, so that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about was that piece of evidence, okay, and how DNA can be collected from a fingerprint, and there has to be fingerprints on that round. Now, if there's not fingerprints on that round, that also is indicative of intent. Just like the knife sheath in the Idaho case, the fact that that thing's clean and all they have is touch DNA on the snap. Somebody took great care to sterilize that in case they dropped it. So they were thinking ahead. They were planning, premeditation, intent. They knew what they were going to do. They didn't want to get caught, so they sterilized that sheath. So, but getting back to Rick Allen. So there should be fingerprints, at least, on that round, on both the casing and the projectile. Because as you saw, I got to use my thumb or my finger, and I'm putting a few different fingerprints on those rounds. And I've seen cases where they use that in trial. I mean, I'm not brand new to all this stuff, you know. So immediately I thought that, you know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. They're going with the tooling mark. They've got more than that. They have to have more. But, you know, I was ignorant. to it. And, you know, like I said the other day, I may be ignorant to my own ignorance, and I wouldn't even know it. But you know, as soon as I had time to give it some thought, it's like this gets crazy. They've got more evidence than that, and they've also. I did a little. See if you guys can see this. Can you guys see that? Okay, I don't know if it's big enough for you guys to see it. Put together a little slideshow thing. We'll just run through it, and if you can't see it, we'll readdress it at a later date. But it's possible to determine where cell phones are. I'm not going to read this stuff verbatim, but it's through triangulation. Now, what people don't understand is, you know, they say, well, oh yeah, they can do it within 20 miles or whatever. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. And if you just honestly, anybody that's watching this, because you know what YouTubers I watch now exclusively, the ones I don't agree with, because I'm not above changing my mind, you know, and they're going against everything that I think. Okay, so I'm listening to them, and most of them are saying, yeah, it's sure they're accurate within 20 miles. It's not the case, and it's not how it works. Now they can get it to within a mile or two, and this one says 1.2 kilometers. But they could get it, especially in a rural area, if you can get it down to a mile or two or under a mile, and you can lay those dots over a map, you can pretty much surmise where they went, okay? Chances of them driving through a field are slim to none, and slim left town, so you go to the nearest road. You may have to guess on some spots, you know, to put it together, but it's just like fragmented DNA. If there's only one thing that makes it logical and makes sense, they didn't levitate across, and then they picked up a ping over there. They drove there, so you can surmise it, and it stands up in court all the time, so it's pretty good. But just to explain it, you can do it with even one tower. In the middle is the blue triangle is the tower, okay, and it's divided into 3 sectors. All of them are, and so you can tell which direction it's going in. And so the cell company can tell which one of their dishes is having problems. And that's just the way they can fix them as well. If there's a dead zone in a certain area, they know which dishes they need to check depending on how many towers they have and which way they're facing. So if you look at these little circles, right, around that triangle, you can tell by the strength of the signal, because your phone is sending that signal. The tower is not sending a signal to you. You're sending the signal to the tower. So the strength of that signal dictates how far away from that tower that you are. So that's what these rings indicate, is distance away from the tower. Okay, so that outside ring, it says here that it's 12.6 miles. So that's the effective range. It's usually a little bit further than that, but that's the effective range. Okay, you guys didn't know you're going to get a class in firearms and cell towers, but I'm just trying to show you how I come to shit logically, and like I said, rationally and reasonably. Okay, so that's one tower. So they would be able to tell just from one cell tower which sector you're in, okay, and how far away from the cell tower you are. So now we've taken down your location by 2/3. By 2/3. That's a lot. That's a lot. If there's 2 towers, if you go back now, there's the same sectors. They all point true north, and they have 3 sectors, you know, and they have the same rings that dictate how far away you are from those towers. So it's not necessarily the outer ring, because those overlap each other. that's what the cell phones companies want to do, have overlapping coverage, so that they get more coverage and they make sure all the customers are happy. Anybody that lives in the overlapping area has great cell reception. You may have 2 bars on your side of the street, and right across the street your neighbor's got 4 bars, and that's why. So with 2 towers, they can look at the first tower and surmise that it's in sector Y, and it's 8.4 miles away from the tower. So they know approximately where it is. It's inside that third. Well, then they go to the next tower, and where they overlap, they can tell that it's inside this ring. It's in this sector of the second tower. So wherever those 2 lines overlap, you're within that area. Okay, and that's still, it's a wide area. It's not down. It's not GPS. It's not down to a meter. Okay, but it narrows it way down, way down. And then when you've got 3 towers, this is where they talk about triangulation. Now they are absolutely positive that you're inside that little red circle using the same principles that I just discussed. So if during your travels for the day, you're getting passed off tower to tower to tower, but those towers are all overlapping. You take this group of 3 towers, and in a congested area, there'll be more towers with less distance. They're projecting their signal in a different way and receiving signals in a different way, because they receive the signal from your phone. Well, then they've got to ping it, send it to the next tower, and send it to the next one, and then to whoever you're calling. So your phone sends the signal, but then that relays it. It's called a relay. So that's how they get it down. So if you take where that little red circle is from these 3 towers, and you put a dot there, okay, and this is all on a map, and you can see what road it is. Well, then you go down to the next set of towers, and you put another dot where they overlap, and it's still on that road. Well, an asshole would say, well, where was he in between there? Oh, he fucking levitated, if that's what you want. But any reasonable person would surmise that, and I'm sorry if I'm cussing, Teresa, I know you're at work, I apologize. But any reasonable person would surmise that they drove there. And law enforcement is able to prove that over and over and over to be accurate by the use of CTC cameras and the such. And so I'm talking about Rick Allen here. If they were able to get that cell phone information, he's already put himself there, but that they'll be able to see when he left, when he got there, stuff like that. It'll help them a lot. Was he indeed walking down 300? So the muddy and bloody is correct. You follow me? Not to mention meta information off the phones, off all the phones. The girl's phone, his phone. In the Idaho case, Brian's phone, all the girls, the victims' phones, the roommates' phones, other people's phones that were contacted by the roommates and by Brian. They get a lot of information off that. That meta information is ridiculous. And if they use GPS, because most of those phones, especially cell phones, have what's called Beacon installed in them. It's a marketing tool, but it also can be used for locating people if you really wanted to. But they can't get you down to exactly where you are unless they are actively surveilling you. Then they use a different kind of equipment. It's called a Stingray and other stuff like that. But they're not supposed to use that stuff too much because actually I think I have there's a penal code, okay? And anybody that laughs at that word penal code, grow up. But what you're doing is pinging a cell phone is a search and seizure of the cell phone subscribers' location records. So they say this right in the penal code. So they're basically warning you as law enforcement, as a citizen, don't do it. Don't do it. You're violating somebody's Fourth Amendment rights. You are searching and seizing their location, which is a violation of a person's right. Because everybody has a presumption of privacy, even in public, to a certain extent. You don't want the big brother feeling, So to a certain extent, everybody has a presumption of privacy, and that's been fought in court. And the people who are suing over that presumption usually win, because it just makes sense. At the end of the day, this is America. We don't do that kind of stuff. They can add in any Wi-Fi, your phone, handshake, routers as you pass through the local internet networks. Absolutely. And if you have, this stuff's come a long way. Hi, Tina. This stuff's come a long way since I retired. And I just got a new iPhone 14, right? I don't know if they all have, this is a Pro. I don't know if they all have it, but it asked me if I wanted to be notified to join networks or something to that effect. But I'm here to tell you, everywhere I went, it popped up. Do you want to join this network? Do you want to join this network? So I shut that off. That was a pain in the balls, man. So if that's the case, that tells me that my, you're absolutely correct, kid. That I didn't know they called it a handshake. A little past my time. I retired in 2008. So if that's what it's called, a handshake, I believe it makes sense. So your phone's handshaking with all these Wi-Fi networks that it passes by. Now, I know most of them have a password on it, but it still identifies it. When I turn my phone on and I go to Wi-Fi, I get all my neighbors' Wi-Fi pops up. And I'm sure you guys will enjoy this. This is how you keep people off of your network. Look at the name of my Wi-Fi. Did it pop up? Hang on. Yeah, see, it's saying join this network, but mine's on top. See what my Wi-Fi. What I named my Wi-Fi. It's actually FBI surveillance van. So that keeps people from joining my network. But so they have all those different ways to verify, okay, that these cell pings are accurate to the degree that they're saying that they are. So that you really can't fight that. And the defense will try to poke holes in that, but they'll lose. Between cameras. For instance, in Brian's case, the detective said, with my knowledge of the area and the fact that he did not drive by cameras going this way, that tells me that he had to have gone this way, because then he was picked up on a camera on a connecting road. So unless he levitated, but by now they've got the cell phone meta information and all that, so that'll be a moot point. Anybody that's arguing right now, either PC for Delphi or Idaho, anybody that's arguing the PC right now is really doing it for nothing, because it doesn't matter. That was just to get them arrested. There's much more. Now, we just found out today that they have thousands of pieces of paper to give the defense in the Delphi case. Thousands. So, and they're not done yet. So you can just imagine. And you've seen that PC, 2 pages, right? It was 2 pages. It wasn't a book, certainly, like the Idaho PC. What a difference between those 2 agencies, huh? It's crazy. But the jury, they're going to have to sequester that jury. We're going to have to, because they're bringing them in from out of county. So I think there was one more page. And this is just court order procedure. And these are penal codes, so these apply to everybody. Now, there's state and local laws as well on top of that. And they may do things differently in the region with the cell phone providers. They have to follow certain guidelines as well, and they have to surrender certain information, but not all, because they make a promise to their customers that their privacy is safe. So to a point, you know. Now, DNA transfer. Okay. And I'm talking about the sheath now, jumping over to Idaho. Okay. If I shook hands with any one of you guys, right, my DNA would transfer to your hand and your DNA would transfer to mine. So technically, we transfer DNA. And then if I touch my mouse here, I could transfer your DNA on that mouse. Well, then if something happens in this room and they take this mouse and they process it forensically, you could get in trouble when you've never been here because your DNA is on this mouse. I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping up with chat. Double down by turning off your phone and covering your camera to avoid tracking because you just never know. I agree, Deja Vu. I mean, I honestly don't care. Anybody that wants to steal my identity, follow me around, have at it. I could give two shits. I'll get a new one. You know, my mom told me when I was a kid that, you know, I could be whoever I wanted and do whatever I wanted, but evidently that's called identity theft. So you can't really do that. So DNA transfer, okay, and I'm talking about the snap and trying to give benefit of the doubt. Like I said, I've been watching other channels, people that I don't typically agree with. And so because I could change my mind, I could hear something or see something that makes me have reasonable doubt about what I'm thinking. So this DNA, this touch DNA on the snap, it was probably fragmented at best, and I'm sure that I have something in here. But this just to show you that the defense could argue that well, no, he might have shook somebody's hand who then touched that snap and transferred his DNA onto there because it's touch DNA, so there's not much of it anyways. I think it only takes 5 to 8 cells for touch DNA to be obtained. So we don't know how much touch DNA. We don't know if there's any other DNA on that sheath at all, and that's leather, so that absorbs it. Especially if it's been oiled, you know, forget it. Fingerprints, all that. So if that thing's sterile, like I said, then that shows intent and premeditation. This person, whoever had it, cleaned it. So, okay, so we can explain away the sheath, right? Well, he could have shook somebody's hand, and then they touched it, so that transferred his DNA. Fair enough. What about the phones pinging that put him at the house? That information isn't accurate. It sure is. Bang, bang, bang. They're going to lose that one. They're going to lose it real quick. So, and it's just a collaboration of all the evidence right now leads me to rationally and logically come to the conclusion that this person is most likely guilty. I can't think of one piece of evidence that they have even shined a light on anybody else but him. And if the evidence that they have now, if it's all correct, which I believe it is, but the defense could steer away from it, but we'll get back to that in 1 second, then it's him. So follow the evidence. That's what I do. But what I'm trying to do is say, okay, well, we can explain away that DNA because that's touch DNA. That could have came from somebody else. Chances of it are very, very, oh, here we go. Shaking hands, touching objects, can be left behind, something they didn't even touch, never laid a finger on it. You know, so, and they've done studies, controlled studies on all of this. Yeah, Christine, there has to be. No doubt about it. I would like to know way more about the PTSD shooting incident. I don't know anything about that. Hi, Sylvia. I don't know anything about that. PTSD shooting. But yeah, there has to be more DNA in both of these. Like I said, there has to be DNA on that round from Rick Allen or something. We'll see thousands of pages of evidence. We just found out today. And the judge hasn't even ruled. She denied change of venue. So they're probably going to bring a jury in from another county, which is going to be a hot mess. Have to sequester the jury and everything else. More money, way more money. And here's the thing with the DNA from a fingerprint, okay? But it deteriorates, and that's only 30 to 35% of fingerprints that you can successfully amplify and get a DNA sample. So they have to use a product to get it, but it is possible. So that could be questioned and ruled out as well. So what I did was, I researched this stuff rather than say, like I've been saying, hey, they got his DNA. You can't explain that away. Well, I'm trying to explain it away. I'm trying to convince myself that there's other options, that there's another person that it could be. Now, once they process, and they've already processed the victims' bodies, if they find his DNA, which they more than likely will, or somewhere else in the house, you can't explain that away then. I mean, the chances are astronomical that he just shook somebody's hand. That's how the DNA got on that snap. Those cell phone towers aren't accurate. He was actually a couple hundred yards away, not at the house or around the house. All those 12 times, So just motives going to be tough. And everybody, I was watching a thing today on this channel, 10 to Life, and I like her. She does a good job. She does her homework. And she was saying that there was some, I don't know if it was on Facebook or whatever, an account called Papa Bravo or something like that. Papa Roger. And people are thinking that it was him this whole time because he was responding to some questions with things that only the murderer would know type thing. But they're trying to figure out, who's Papa Roger. And I guess there was an incel named Roger or Rogers that killed some people. So he may be making a tribute to him because I guess that guy killed a bunch of people and killed himself. But it could also be the police alphanumerical, Papa Rogers PR. Some people say some law enforcement agencies say Romeo instead of Roger because they use Roger that instead of 10-4. Okay. So usually agencies that use Roger that instead of 10-4 will use Romeo for the word R, but they all use Papa. So it could be that, and I'm not saying that. I'm not even suggesting that. I'm just saying there are other the avenues that should be explored, not just whether he was an incel or not. I never even heard of the word incel until a couple of weeks ago, to be quite honest with you. And I didn't know that it meant involuntarily celibate either. We just called them losers. And if I wasn't getting lucky back then, I called myself a loser. You step your game up. You don't kill people. So today in the Rick Allen case, right? So if we get back to that real quick, we know that they have a lot more evidence, shitload more. We're short of that there's, thousands of pages or items or collaboration of the two of information that's got to be turned over. Now, and this is how they differ. And to me, the one in Indiana is making more sense, okay? Because I'm used to, you get arrested, within 24 hours, you have to be in front of a judge and have first appearance or arraignment or first appearance. And that's where the judge says you've been arrested for yada, yada, yada. I find probable cause. We're going to set your bond at so much or release you on your own recognizance. No contact with the victim. Can you afford an attorney or not? If you can't, you'll be appointed one. And stuff like that, and you get all kinds of paperwork if you get released, so you know that you have to call in, give your attorney's information so they can start communicating with the prosecution. And if you have a public defender, the public defender will reach out to you whether you are in jail or free. So then you get that, okay? And then your next hearing is your first appearance. That is where you've had time to speak with your attorney. Now, remember, Richard Allen, he sat in jail because he said he could get his own attorney. Well, he didn't know what to do, right? Most people don't, to be honest with you, in his defense. And he said, listen, I can't afford an attorney. I need one appointed. Now, the court at some point would have contacted him and said, hey, we need your attorney's information so that we can get you your preliminary hearing under the speedy trial rules, okay, that we're bound to. We have to give you a trial within a certain amount of time. That's your right as an American citizen under the Constitution and the amendments. So if he didn't contact, they would have reached out to him if he didn't contact them when he did. So then they gave him an attorney, gave him time to speak with his attorney, and he had another hearing where he pled not guilty. Okay, that shit just doesn't come out of the woodwork, you have to put your plea in. And now, they filed at this hearing, they filed for a change of venue, and they filed an ex parte, which just means the prosecution has no say in the matter, asking the judge for money for specialists and stuff like that, so experts, to pay experts. So that got granted, from what I understand. So that process I'm used to. Now, this shit in Idaho. Now, I know he got arrested in Pennsylvania, and he got a PD there, public defender, and that guy's a shithead. If you guys watched my video a couple times ago, I call him shithead. He needs to shut the fuck up, and he's still talking. He's still talking like he's representing. He just needs to shut the fuck up. He's an idiot. But they appointed an attorney for him to fight his extradition, period, only. Right? Because they have to prove two things. A, that is him. That is indeed the person that they wanted arrested. And B, that he can and will be extradited. Some countries won't extradite. I'm sure you guys have heard that some criminals run to companies where there is no extradition. So that's why he got an attorney, to either fight extradition or fight that, no, that's not me, okay? Neither one of those things happened. He waived his right for extradition, so he was getting extradited, and it turns out he got extradited pretty quick. So that was that attorney's only job. Not to discuss his case, nothing. And I guess Kohlberg is the one that prepared the statement that the attorney put out and told him to use the words that he's anxious to be exonerated. Now, we all know what the word anxious means. He's excited, he's chomping at the bit, wants to get this done. And exonerated, people that get exonerated have already been found guilty of something. And then it's proven that they're not guilty, so they're exonerated. He wasn't anxious to prove his innocence. He was anxious to be exonerated. This guy's smart. He's going for his doctorate, his PhD. He knows what he's doing, right? So he's careful with his verbiage, I believe, anyways. But he once he got back here, right, the day, and this is the shit that I'm telling you that's making me slip. I understand that Ho got arrested in Pennsylvania, gets assigned a public defender for extradition only, right? So gets extradited. That public defender in Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact, everybody in Pennsylvania is now done with his case. Shut the fuck up, all of them. You have nothing to do with this case anymore. Sorry for the inconvenience that we had to come get him in your house, but we've taken him out of your house now. There's nothing. So, no, deja vu. No, because he wasn't charged yet. He wasn't charged yet. So he could talk about his case there all he wants, but there was no case yet. There was no case yet. So that's why his attorney, now there's a gag order, right? And I'm not trying to say that, people need to think differently. I just do because of my background. But there's a gag order on this, okay? It doesn't apply to this attorney in Pennsylvania. You know why? Because he's not officially connected to this case anymore. Nobody there is. Nobody there is. Inmates in the jail, I don't think they can even be, if he talked while he was in the jail, I don't think they can be even be part of the process. I could be wrong, but I've never heard of that. So, and I know people talk in the jail, especially ones that have been in the system. They get arrested all over the damn country and extradited. But that's usually white collar paper guys. We call them paper guys, the ones that write the bad checks and open fake businesses and the such and extort people and all that. But they're usually not violent, but they get arrested all over the country for shit that they're doing. They target, a lot of them target Florida because of the number of retirees that are easy to scam out of their hard-earned money. It's a sad state of affairs. We'll go over that one day. It's pretty sad. But anyways, he gets to Idaho. Now, what happens? He gets to Idaho, and he's already got an attorney sitting there. Okay, now it should be the same process. Richard Allen got arrested. They put him in jail. The next day, the judge asked, "Can you afford an attorney?" He said, "Yes, I can." But if he said no, and he's indigent, which means he's broke, they would appoint an attorney at no cost to him, which is also a fallacy, and I'll get to that. Actually, I'll get to it right now. You get an attorney for free, but if you're found guilty, guess what? You owe that money for that attorney. And whatever, if you're in prison for the rest of your life, half of whatever, any money people put in your commissary goes towards paying that back. They call it restitution, but it's more just being a pain in the ass for this guy for the rest of his life, when he probably had shitty counsel to start with if he had a PD. But anyways, Brian had a PD waiting on him. Now, she doesn't work for the public defender's office. She had his attorney, just like Richard Allen's attorney, has to be a certified death row attorney. Public defender's office is usually filled with guys that are fresh, and girls. I don't mean to sound sexist, but people that have recently graduated law school. They're new attorneys, so they start out being a public attorney, public defender, to learn their craft. Or older attorneys who don't want to do shit anymore, or attorneys that suck, basically. So they're not the cream of the crop, but some of them prove to be really good, and that's how they get their own practice. Okay, it's just like everything else. But chances are you're not going to get a real good one. But he already had one. He had one sitting there. She was waiting on him at his first appearance. So at your first appearance, you can't even go there and say, well, yeah, I did it. Let's get this over with. I'm guilty. You can't even do that. You can't do that until you preliminary hearing. You have to talk to counsel first. That's the law. So he already had an attorney sitting there. Now, the only thing that I can surmise, the only thing I can think of that even makes any sense to me whatsoever, is they found him indigent in Pennsylvania, and they assigned him a public defender because they asked him the same questions after he was arrested. Can you afford an attorney? No. And they ask you, do you have a bank account? Do you have a job? Do you have this, that? I find you indigent. We're going to appoint you attorney. So the only thing I can think of is that Idaho said, all right, he's indigent. They found him indigent there. He's going to be indigent here. Let's just get this ball rolling. Let's get an attorney figured out and assigned to him so that we don't have to go through that whole process. So that's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing Yeah, if they're found guilty, yeah, they got to pay that money. It's part of the restitution in Florida, anyway. In Florida, and I only know that on the believe it or not, on the correction side by listening to convicts and inmates pissing and moaning and bitching because half of their money got taken. you know, uh, yeah, there could be a slew. But there could be, but who knows? I mean, we'll all find out together. But there'll be a slew of experts. You can take that to the bank. There'll be a slew of experts. But now, as far as testifying, and I was not aware of this because, from what I understand, you have the right to confront your accuser. Okay. Now, does Dylan? She's a witness, right? She's an eyewitness and an ear witness. But is she really the accuser? Because they were talking about today. There's a guy, Peter. He's an attorney. He's local here. He lives. I've known who he is for years. Peter Targos. He's pretty good. He has a web page called The Attorney You Know, and I believe he has a Facebook and a YouTube and all that. But he's really good. He goes on the local news down here, FLA rather. So he was even questioning it, and some of the things that came out in those documents today with Richard Allen, I don't understand them either. And he was just saying today that they must have made those documents and then just not signed them for a while. That's the only thing that makes sense, So the way they're going about their business. So both of these are awkward to me, and they just don't sound right. And especially it makes sense to me now at this point that Richard Allen's attorney is discussing discovery, okay? Because he's already had his preliminary hearing. He's already pled not guilty, okay? Kohlberger hasn't. That was supposed to happen yesterday. But basically they were like, well, we're not ready for this hearing. Can we postpone it until the end of June? And then the prosecutor said, well, with my calendar, July's actually better. But, they're busy. I mean, so I can understand that. If we can't do it now, I'm not going to have another chance to do it until their calendar's full, right? So I understand that part of it. So, okay. So you're going to have 6 months to talk to your attorney, figure shit out, and then you can plead. But now they're asking for discovery. They're asking for information. Now, the prosecution can give them information, but until the discovery part of the process, they don't have to. They don't have to do too much. So, and the defense definitely doesn't have to do anything. They don't. The defense doesn't have to do anything to this whole trial. They don't have to prove innocence. The state has to prove guilt. They don't. They have the burden of evidence. So how the hell is this guy demanding discovery, demanding, I want to know what you have on me before I give you a plea on this? So now, and this is why I was saying before about his statement that he made. Well, he was in Pennsylvania, right? He was anxious, is the word he used, anxious to get there and be exonerated. Okay, so we all know exonerated, and he knows what he's talking about. He's a smart cookie. He's got the vocabulary. You have to be guilty of something before you can be exonerated. But he said he was anxious. Well, now all of a sudden he's not anxious, is he? He wants to put off even pleading. He hasn't pled guilty, not guilty, no contest. Nothing. But he wants to know what they have. So, and to me, my opinion, and I've made this very clear, that in my eyes, a reasonable, logical person would look at that and say, what are you feeling guilty about? Why all of a sudden the change? Why did you go from I can't wait to get there and to exonerate myself, and then you get there and then oh shit, they got what? Because he hadn't read the PC yet. That wasn't put out yet. And you know what else hasn't been put out? The search warrant for his apartment. And it works the same way, just like that Ron Logan one. They have to show probable cause. They can't just go in his apartment willy nilly. No judge is going to sign that unless there's an active felony taking place. Well, then you can do it. But other than that, you need a warrant or exigent things are going on. We talked about that yesterday. So we haven't seen that yet either. So we don't really know what else they have. But now, all of a sudden, he did not know what was in the PC until he got here, to Idaho. Well, now he knows what's in the PC. He's a criminal justice major. He knows that that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, there's a lot of evidence in his PC. There's a lot. And it's hard to explain away. You know, you just circumstantial or not, when there's enough of it that corroborates, you're screwed. And you can't explain away DNA. That's direct evidence. But they'll try to by saying it was contact DNA. It wasn't, didn't come from his body. It was somebody else touched it, you know. So they'll, yeah. Well, here's the thing, Deja Vu. If he's probably going to take a plea, to be quite honest with you. Because that's why he's waiting. He understands the process. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's not stupid. He wants as much information going into this so he knows what to do and he can begin the negotiations as soon as possible. Now, whether he's a criminal mastermind and this is all part of his plan, who knows? Who knows? Some people have speculated that this has all happened exactly how he wanted to happen. He made those mistakes on purpose. Some say that no, it wasn't him because he wouldn't have been that sloppy. He wouldn't have made those mistakes. So which way do you think? If you think like a reasonable, logical person, which way do you lean? And that's one that's iffy because you can't really get in his head. And so as a reasonable person, I can't read minds, and I never could, and I don't believe in it. So I don't know what his thought process and his motive was. I know what his intent was. You know, I know why he went to that house. He intended on killing those kids. I know where he did it. I know when he did it. I know how he did it. And that's another thing, too, with the Delphi case. They redacted what kind of weapon it was. Now, you can surmise that it was an edged weapon or a sharp weapon or something like that. But, you know, it doesn't exactly say, where it does say in the PC for Kohlberger, which I thought, it's just so funny how different those two states are in their agencies. They're both small town agencies, but it just seems that, and maybe because it's a college town, and you need to consider that, I guess. But it seems like they're more on the ball than the Delphi case, but they're a college town. They have more access. I guarantee you they have access to all of those professors to get to that they can consult, you know, and stuff like that. So, but he's something else. We don't know what his motive was or anything like that, but we do know intent. And I'm sorry about this little blurry stuff. I'm out on the sun porch and got my lights on, but the sun went down. It's a shitty day here today. But in Florida, a shitty day is 60 degrees and overcast. You know, I get pissed off about that. But that's all. I know there's not much going on, so I didn't foresee myself even doing a live or even any videos, as a matter of fact, for a while. But there's a couple other cases out there that I was kind of look at, so maybe I'll bounce them off you guys and we can talk about those. But I just wanted to touch base with you guys and just get your thought process moving towards that they have more evidence in both cases, and they're both in this about the same spot of the process. But now the Idaho one's put off till June, and you watch, write it down right now that Ruckus said in June 26th, they're going to bump it till probably October, November, September at least. It's going to get bumped. He'll plead, but then the negotiations will start. And if he pleads out, that'll suck. That'll suck. But at least if he pleads out and never opens his mouth, we'll never know what happened. And that'll suck. But at least, he'll get life with no parole. It's like I said, if he doesn't plead out and he goes to court and loses, he can still get the death sentence if he pleads guilty. He can still get the death sentence in that state. But if he gets a death sentence with the appellate system and all that shit, 2040, 2045, that's never going to happen. His poor family will never have any kind of closure for a long time. But if something else comes up, or if I think of something interesting, or if you guys have something interesting, just throw it in my Discord or on my community section. Make a comment somewhere. I get notified and I see them all. If there's another case or something like that, it'll be fun doing it together. It'll be fun taking you guys and all of us starting at the same spot. You know what I mean? And doing it together, build it up together, and surmise what happened and figure shit out. It's pretty fun as a group, I would imagine. I've always done shit by myself and just in my head. Because like I said, I moved away from my cop buddies, so I talk to them once in a while, but I don't see them all the time like I used to. Anna case, what is that? I just saw something today about that corn rake. That woman that her husband killed her with a corn rake. That was crazy. Yeah, can you imagine deja vu? Because of lack of lethal drug availability. And yet people overdose on heroin every day. They can't find any heroin. If it's like I said, that death row, they're being warehoused. Missing wife from Art scammer. Oh, are you talking about the Massachusetts case? The real estate lady from Massachusetts that they found a knife and blood in his basement, and he had gone to the store and bought a whole bunch of shit. Okay, I would love to do that one, because actually it's funny. They owned a piece of property in Lynn, Mass, and that's where I graduated high school from. Actually, I'm from Charlestown, but I graduated high school in Lynn, so that's kind of interesting. And Lynn is right next door to Swampscott, where his mom lives. So I know the area very well. Yeah, I wouldn't mind looking at that, but it looks like it's going to be cut and dry. They got him. They got him. He's, as we say in Massachusetts, he's fucked. He's fucked. They got him red-handed, I guess. But I'll look at that today. We'll see it. But from what I understand, he went to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever and bought a whole bunch of cleaning supplies, mops, buckets, tape, and the such. And they just found all of that shit in a landfill in Peabody. Now, when you guys see it on TV, you probably pronounce it Peabody, because it's Peabody, but to us it's Peabody. Just the way we say it. It's like Worcester. You'd call it Worcester, but it's Worcester to us. But they just found all that shit in a landfill in Peabody, a transfer station, whatever they want to call it. So I'll take a look at that today, and if it's anything good, I'll put up a thing for a live. Maybe we'll do it like Wednesday or something. Got the grandkids this weekend, so might set up the tents. We live on 2.5 acres here, so I might set up the tents and let them camp out and stuff. But if not, I'll do one. I'll put it up a couple days heads up, And that way, if you guys can get some stuff ready and maybe educate me on this one, but we'll do it together. Because this guy looks like a piece of work, if nothing else. I feel bad for their children, to be honest with you. But other than that, I will see you guys soon. And thanks for joining in short notice. And please, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. It helps me with the algorithms. I'm not monetized or anything. I don't give a shit about that. But yeah, you guys have a good weekend too. And again, thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. My name is Ruckus. I am 10-7. Great weekend, everybody.